Good afternoon, Wendy. Thanks for joining me on the Q.A.C. team podcast today. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. And thanks so much for having me. It's
Oh,
really a
you're
pleasure
so,
to get to speak to you.
so very welcome. I appreciate you coming on. So let's go ahead and get started and give a little more insight to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Wendy Leggett. I'm a professional certified coach specializing in retirement life planning. And a lot of times people will say, wow, did you come up with that idea? Because it's the non-financial side. But there is a whole industry around this. And I think that there's more and more of a spotlight around making sure that that those golden years, as they used to be called, really are golden and that they're not tarnished. So what I do is really helping people raise their awareness around why it's so important to spend some time and thought and planning around that next chapter, and then really set intentions, be very clear on what you want to accomplish or what will feel purposeful for you, and then make it happen. So that's the kind of work that I do.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's the thing, right? Because I see it so much where people talk about, you retire at 65, most people don't live till 70, 75. So you get to enjoy maybe 5, 10 years of your life. So make
Yeah.
it count now. So I think what you do is good because you can start to get people on that path of what they're going to do for retirement, right?
Yeah, well, and that's such a great point too, Charles, because yes, in the past, I mean, that word retire was when people were in the fields or in the factories. And when they got to that age, they were tired. And so they need
Yes.
to have some time because they only had a few years. And that's where Social Security came around to really support people post-career. But things have really changed now. And we know that our lifespan is increasing, that
Yeah.
when a person typically retires at 60 or 65, they have a third more of their life potentially to live, another 20 or 30 years. And so it's a matter of, well, what will you be doing in that retirement? And so often people think about the leisure and the travel on the one end of the spectrum, or on the other end, one foot into the grave. And what I really want to share with people is that realistic optimism, really looking at, if I'm planful, then I can move forward in a way that's going to be very supportive of feeling like I matter and feeling like there's a reason to get up in the day. So
Right. It's so important, right? Having a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning and do something, right? So what a
right.
great way to transition to the next question. So tell us a bit why you decided to be a business owner.
Yeah, I was reflecting on that because you had kind of let me know that this would be something you thought you wanted to ask me. And my background, Charles, is as a sales leader. So all of the majority of my career had been spent in developing my team members, achieving and maximizing resources as well as achieving those goals. And really making sure that we were moving the corporation forward, and I was elevating my team members' capabilities. And so I really love that. I love the connection with my customers. I loved meeting those goals and really helping my people achieve what they were looking for. But I came to this juncture where the last position that I was working in, where I was the director of sales for a number of franchises, the owners of the company, who I loved, and I loved the work, and it was really dynamic and creative. And we did really well. We had a lot of successes together. They decided to sell the company. And when that happened and the new owner came in, it became very clear to me very quickly that although he wanted to keep me on board, our values were not in alignment. And maybe you've had this happen too, where you're representing something that just doesn't feel so good. So I was having to carry a message to my team members and to the customers that just did not align with my values. So I kept trying to shift the course as we do, right? We're problem solvers or fixers, and oh, I can make this better. But I finally came to that conclusion that this was soul sucking. And so I really did some deep thinking and thought, well, where do I want to go from here? And I thought, I've always loved the process of sales. I've always loved the connection with people, but the product itself wasn't that important. I thought, well, then why not make myself the product, myself that service, and bring myself forward? So all that being said, that was very long-winded, but I ended up then going back to school and getting my credentials as a professional certified coach, and then further credentials as a retirement life coach.
A great point you made, and it's a great, I mean, a great answer to the question. And I think so many people that I interview, it's a common thread thing that all of us entrepreneurs have this story of we were in the corporate world and it just we had to get away from it,
Yeah.
and I included, you hit it when you said it. You just weren't satisfied and comfortable with things that are going on, and we
Yeah.
want to make a change. We want to do things different, which is a
Yeah.
great segue into this question. So why did you choose this industry, right? You have that, you've got this fire, you said you're into sales, right? And you're fired up with sales. You're just like me. I love sales. I love talking. And now here we are talking about life coach. Went back to school. So tell us about why you chose this industry.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, really, where my heart has always been is in that connection with people. And I think that I would always get feedback that I was a really great listener, a great mentor, somebody who really keyed in and focused on that other person and what was going on underneath the hood. And so I think was able then with, I found coaching, I read about things and somehow there was a book that I read and I've got to go back and find what it was, but it was like, I had thought, well, I could go back and become a psychologist because that kind of resonated. But I thought, well, that'll take way beyond the amount of years that I feel like I would want to be putting toward that. But then I was
Yeah.
reading that I could become a coach and not go into that many years of study. And so that was just not something, in corporate, we would have consultants come in, but at that time, and we'd have very niche coaches, but not like a lifestyle coach. And so all that being said, then I thought, wow, this is the avenue for me. And so, and then when I went back to school and then, my eyes opened up even more. And I have to say, going back to the question you asked before or mentioned your comments, Charles, about how entrepreneurs that this is kind of what happens for us. I think that it does get to that point where, we've kind of been pushing things away for so long and then we just can't push it away any longer and we see, wow, this is who I am. This is what's
Yeah.
important to me. And to
Yeah.
keep denying it is denying myself and denying the opportunity that I can put something out in the world as well. So
Yeah.
then choosing the line of the retirement focus for me really was because I'm in that baby boomer generation where from 1946 to 1964, and that's where the preponderance right now of retirees happen. And so I've seen with my clients, I've seen with a lot of friends and family, them going through that transition into retirement. And for some, it was a smooth transition, but for others, it was really a splash of really cold water because it was like, wow, what does feel purposeful to me now? Where is my sense of identity? Even connecting beyond the financials of what do I need to have in order here? And so finding out that I could go deep into that retirement learnings was just so eye-opening for me and so gratifying because I really feel like in our demographic, we weren't raised with positive psychology. We are that generation, and there are others too that's so hardworking and productive and get it done and no pain, no gain, that we do suppress those feelings and we do
Yeah.
push them. And it's critically important that they come to the surface, and that's the kind of work that I do.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I know you're close as well. I'm thinking retirement. I'm thinking, what am I going to do, in 15, 20 years when I know my financials aren't in line yet. I'm still working on my processes, But tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what you do and the process of helping people find what it is that they're wanting to do with their retirement. Give us a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, it really is a process. It's a roadmap to retirement readiness, and so we really start with what do you. Well, first of all, like you're saying, what will I do in retirement? So the first question is, well, what does retirement mean to you, and why is it even important? Because I don't believe that we have to retire at a certain age. What I do believe is that we have a reason. We want to bring something into retirement with us, and that we're retiring for a reason, and so I really try to ground people around that. I've had some clients come to me all set on retiring. And as we work together, it's like they weren't really planning to retire as much as everybody around them is pushing them to retire. And they're feeling that social
Yeah.
pressure, that
The
family pressure.
pressure. They feel the pressure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And so we're able to then deconstruct that and say, wait, this is your life. You're at choice. You're accountable for your destiny. And so is this, what else is possible? And so
Yeah.
I just as much as I want to help people move into retirement, I don't push people into retirement. I don't believe that we should retire at a certain age. Some can retire, whatever that's called, at 30, some never, and anything in between. I think it's really, how do you define retirement? And so I think that that's the first piece of it. And then from there, really, as I mentioned, even for myself, is really figuring out, what are my values? What aligns with what's most important to me? Because we know when our values are aligned with our actions, then we're motivated and we move forward. So really helping people get clear about their values, and also looking at what do they have with them, everything that they have in their toolbox from the time up to this retirement moment, all the skills and capabilities and passions, really looking at that toolkit and saying, what do I want to bring with me into retirement? And what do I want to leave behind? Because if we don't look at that transition point and really what needs to have an ending before we move into the beginning, we can carry really patterns and habits that don't serve us. So we really excavate that as well. And then really determining what feels purposeful to you. And I know a lot of times it's out there, oh, you have to find your purpose. And that feels just so heavy, right? And so overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, if I don't have a
They'll never
purpose, then
do, right? I mean, if you
keeping
think about
together.
it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, some people never find their purpose, and some people they go through life like a robot, and we just feel like the thing to do is to work for 30 years and then just
yeah.
sit at home and be bored.
Yeah, yeah, just be on that hamster wheel. And I
Yeah.
want to mention to that be bored that, Charles, it's so shocking that the average retiree watches 47 hours of TV a week. So
Ugh.
it's replaced a full-time job with full-time TV watching. And we know from a cognitive standpoint, a social standpoint, a health standpoint, that is just not the path. So it is really important that we get clear on what does feel meaningful, what gets us up in the morning and not watching TV, what makes us feel like we're making a contribution for ourselves, for those we love, in our community, in our world. And so, but it doesn't have to be this big, finding purpose. It can be feeling purposeful, like taking care of grandkids or volunteering or um, starting a new kind of business. Anything large or small. It can be purpose with a big P, it can be purpose with a small p.
I
But we
love
work
it.
with that. And then we also take a look, which I think is critically important, at balance, because we know that when we're working, if it's 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or more in a day, that's half of our 24-hour day. And then, oh, yeah, we do have to sleep. So we don't have a lot of time to achieve balance oftentimes. But now in retirement, we've got this time abundance. So how are we going to then utilize that? And can we achieve
Yeah,
maybe more than we've had when we were
right.
working?
Yeah,
Yeah,
balance with your time, right? As you get older, it seems like time goes faster because we're so much more busy, you know.
yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
key thing to let's make sure we manage that time well and focus on how we're structuring our days now to enjoy what time we have left, you know?
Yes, yeah, you're so right. And that idea of structure that we've lost when we're working, then because we all operate best with structure. I'm not saying routine, but I'm saying some semblance of structure. And everybody, has more of a flow than others. And that's all, you have to find your own rhythm. But yet
Right,
we can lose that with our work, just like our work has baked in purpose. We have goals or we have things we're going to accomplish or we have meetings to go to. Now that we don't have that, what do we want to instill so that we again start to feel like we mean something, and that our time is
yeah.
fulfilling, not just filling time. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you faced when you started getting into this and creating your business.
yeah, for myself, I always look at the personal challenges as well as the professional because I don't want to overlook my whole self. And from a personal standpoint, have you heard of the sandwich generation, where you have adult kids and you have parents? Well, I'm the club sandwich generation. So I have grandchildren, I have my children and parents. And so my parents are really having a lot of health struggles now. My dad has Alzheimer's. And
Sorry to hear
so
that.
Oh, thank you. But the
Yeah.
point is that then there's those issues on a personal, and then from on the other end of my sandwich, I've got these grandkids and my adult children that I want to continue to support and enjoy time with them. So there's that piece that I want to make sure that I hold very sacred and that I have that focus. And then from a professional standpoint, really the challenge was, well, first of all, now I'm owning this business. And so, as much as I love sales and I feel that I know how to get out there and promote myself, there's still a lot of backroom stuff that you know as well as I do that, there's just a lot. And when I went through coaching school, and I'm not faulting this at all, but it was a matter of just get out there and coach. And so I think a lot of that, the technical stuff and the logistical, backroom administrative stuff. So I would say that that has been kind of that challenge is just finding time for all of these personal and professional. But gosh, when I get to work in the business and coaching people, that's where it's at. That's so gratifying, and to see the
Yeah.
impact that people can have in their lives when they open themselves up to changing their course. So,
Yeah, that's something that I'm glad you mentioned. Like, that's something that I talk about almost in every podcast. When we get to this question about the challenges, we all face that challenge, right? It's a struggle time and doing things and putting everything together, finding the time to just make it work. But I am so passionate about what I do that I don't want to do anything but this. And when I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm very like I'm in my zone. I love it. This is what I want to
yeah,
do with my
yeah,
life,
I
and
know. Yeah, you
I
live.
want to do it everywhere. I love what I do. And
Yeah,
again, the challenge is, all these external things that we deal with family and things that go on. It's a struggle for us. It's a challenge to balance everything. And that's
yeah,
good. It's part of what you do that you help people realize that even though you're a human and you struggle with things, you're still finding time to create this business to help people with their retirement as they get older and want to find something to do with their time and structure to understand retirement. I love it.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think it is something that oftentimes people think, well, if I have my financial house in order and I've got that all dialed in, that I've done the heavy lifting and I don't, that everything else will fall into place and it'll be endless weekends, leisure and travel, because that's what the media promises me. And that's
That's
what
what
I see.
everybody says, right?
But the
Yeah.
reality is that 1 in 3 struggle in retirement. And when people come to me, just being able to normalize that and say, you're not alone. I
Yeah.
had one client who was in education and she just said, I feel like there's a death here that I'm leaving the vocation that I love. And it was
Yeah.
like, it's so normal. Your work is interwoven oftentimes with your identity. And when you leave
Yeah.
that work behind, you can feel like you're leaving pieces of yourself behind. And so that's where I'm able to help people as well.
And do you feel that, and this is something that I noticed, being 54, I'm getting in that range, you know, I feel that times are changing to where we're not being loyal to companies anymore. So our identity with one company seems to be not a thing anymore to where we're having multiple jobs, we're leaving companies fast, and we're like really worrying about ourselves and our family, not about being loyal to a company. So are you finding when you talk to people about this that it's hard for them to really get a structure because we don't have that? Well, I worked for a company for 30 years and now I'm ready to retire. Because that's kind of becoming a thing that's going to kind of go away, right? We don't really
Yeah.
see that anymore, right?
Right. Yeah, we don't see it as much, although in that baby boomer generation, we just don't tend to be changing jobs maybe as much as other generations. Like I look at my kids who are, in their early 30s, they have a very, very different approach, just as you're sharing, not so locked and loaded into one company. Pensions aren't a thing as much anymore. But I
Yeah.
think that there's still that mindset, and especially again in that baby boomer generation where we weren't raised with positive psychology. We were raised with working 9 to 5 and that, that you've got all of these commitments to that company. I think as a it, I think that all of us in general have kind of started to shift that, but I think that we hold on underneath to some of that. And so then when we move into retirement, we just don't have some of those patterns and habits in place, like you said, to put yourself forward first, and really think about
Yeah.
what do I want? And by achieving what I want, I can be of more benefit and service to others. And so that's where we need to be able to kind of really excavate that and say, okay, what are your drivers? What are the things that are holding you back? Or what are the opportunities? And you just, it's a kid in a candy store, and oh my gosh, you can't even decide what all you want to pick. And so then we need
Yeah,
get at that too, because I've had clients who are so busy. Oh my goodness, their dance card is so full, but oftentimes it's because they want to still feel relevant. They want to say, I'm doing all these things, but it feels like Groundhog's Day in another way. I had one who had gotten to that point where she said, I might as well just go back to work because I'm stressed out now from having such a full calendar. And the last thing that I want for people is to go back to work because they haven't been able to dig deep and figure out, they retired for a reason. So what does that retirement potentially offer them? And if it's not the
yes.
right thing, then roll it back. But
And that was my next thought to you was going to be, I see so much that elderly people in their 70s are working in Walmarts and gas stations. And I kind of ask them sometimes, so why are you working again? Well, I can't afford it, so I have to go back to work, and
mm,
this is what my life is now. And they're kind of bummed out that they
yeah,
retired, now they can't afford it, you know.
yes.
So
No,
it's a
no.
whole other conversation, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's really for the financial experts and things. But at the
yeah,
same time, Charles, I have had clients who've been because I work a lot with financial planners and they'll refer some of their clients. And one in particular I can think of where his advisor said he could not afford to retire. And so we started working together and he was really angry about it. He was
yeah,
really, yeah, he was very resentful. He said, I've
yeah,
worked all this time and all these people around me are retiring and I can't. And so what I did, Charles, is I asked him to let's look at the elements in your life right now. You own your home, your beautiful home. You could choose to sell it and you would then have money so that then maybe retirement could be feasible. Oh no, I love my home. Yeah, I get that.
I
And you've
get
got
it.
these hobbies that you love, but
Hmm?
they're expensive. And so, hey, you
Expensive.
should consider giving up those hobbies. Oh no, that's what
Yeah,
makes my life fulfilling. So it's like, so let's look at what you have instead of what you don't have. That concept of abundance versus lack, that gratitude. And so that was life changing for him because he had been so focused on what he couldn't have, and upset about it. And then he started thinking, I'm at choice. And that's really what I want my clients to be is accountable for their decisions, whatever those are. Um, I'm supportive of if it's their decisions. So I think that that's where we can make that shift as well. It's just really like for that person at Walmart, hopefully, they're looking at it that I'm getting out there, I'm connecting with people because I've had clients that have chosen to go back and work at Disneyland because it is the happiest place on earth and they want to be around all of that. And so
right.
that's, but if somebody's forced to because of finances, that is a reality. And I know that that's a difficult road for many, many people. We want to then at least make the most of what we do have. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah, good point. I mean, that's it's good stuff, and you bring up so many valid points with that, and there are so many people who don't really understand that they are better off than they think they are because they have these hobbies and things that they do, and they feel like they're stuck because, well, I can't afford to retire, but you got these hobbies and you do all this stuff, and you don't really realize how well you really have it.
Yeah, or the family or friends that you have, or the where you live, or like there's just so many things that we overlook. And so I'm really
Yeah,
big, really trying to be present and soaking in what I do have, and
yeah,
really appreciating in that because we're so often looking at the past, living in the past, or projecting to the future, and we're not just like right here, right now. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
great. So, expectations for you and your business the next year or two. Tell us about that. What's it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and grow the number of people that I do serve. I love opportunities like you've given me to reach out and get the word out to more people because, as I shared earlier, so many people think, wow, I've never heard of this. They think that I made up a retirement life coach that's
Right.
non-financial.
You didn't
Um,
make it up. No.
yeah, yeah. And then really trying to,
Yeah,
shift that narrative and that awareness and understanding. So that's what I'm
right.
looking to.
Right. So since you brought up what you're looking for people, tell us how do we reach out to you? How do we contact you?
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. So the name of my company is Conflux, Conflux, Conflux Retirement Coaching. And so people can come to my website, compluxretirementcoaching.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Wendy Leggett. And also maybe in the show notes, Charles, because I'd love to offer your listeners a little free mini workbook for retirement readiness. Then they'll find that link in there, and that'll take them to my website very easily. And that workbook, I think, will really get the juices flowing around this roadmap to retirement I've spoken about. And then I welcome them to have a free complimentary discovery call with me. And we can talk about what they've wrote down in the workbook or any obstacles or opportunities that they see for themselves, and then see if we want to continue to work together.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, you took that last question right out there and you just went right into it. I don't have to worry about saying, so what do you have to offer our listeners today? So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want
Yeah.
to say, beautiful website, by the way. I like the flow. I like the way the wording. It really grabbed my attention. And I want our listeners to know, hopefully they go to your website and they really look at it and take in that message, because I think anybody who's about to retire or thinking about retiring, that this is it's a good thing,
Yeah. Oh,
to
thank you so
help
much.
us
And
who retire.
thanks for
Yeah,
the about my website and stuff. I
yeah,
appreciate
absolutely, yeah. And speaking of my own retirement, my retirement where I want to be is I want to buy an RV, travel the country, and do my business around the country.
so great. That's so great.
That's my
But here's the question then, Charles, because if you'd still be doing kind of what you're doing, then why do we define it retirement? And that's the thing. I think the word retired is going to be retired. It's not really accurate for what we're all doing now. So
yeah.
like some people think that when I left corporate and started coaching that I retired, and that this was like my encore career or something. But no, I just changed careers. And so for you might just be changing where you're working, because now you're
Mhm.
on the road and things, but you're still doing everything you love the same way, bringing all the energy and passion and insights to everyone. So that's where I think that definition of retired, it's a squishy one, isn't it?
It is, and I want to tell you, this is not where I expected to be, because I started working for a huge telecommunications company, and my goal was to retire in that company after 30 years.
Yeah.
But as you see, it didn't work out that way. I had some very unfortunate things happen that drove me out of that corporate world into entrepreneurship, and I never look back. I don't look back at that as a missed opportunity. Oh my God, look at me. I can't believe I'm not in that field anymore. I like the fact that my life took me where I am today, and I'm so grateful for it and thankful for where I am. And I think
Yeah.
that's why what you said, the stigma behind the word retire, you know,
Yeah.
we have to come up with some other way to say it, because we're not going to really be retiring. We're just going to be changing our lifestyle. And I think that's something I would love for you to work on, to hear, what is that word? What does it look like when we say retirement, right?
Yeah.
Changing our lifestyle, changing our way of living, right? It's a great
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, no, and it'd be great if your listeners, write back to you and give you some suggestions and we
Yeah.
could make a change because we talk about like rewirement and reaspirement and reimagining and things like that.
Yeah.
But right now it's just not a shared vocabulary. But you're so right. And I'm so glad that you did bounce forward from that experience that you had in corporate because oftentimes, especially when people are in big corporations that may or may not have pensions, they do kind of look at that cradle to grave kind of concept. And they
Yeah.
really are looking at grave, like they're looking
Yeah.
at that it's like one day you're in, the next day you're out, one day you're working hard, and the next day you're falling out. Again, we've got 20, 30 more years, we hope. And
Yeah.
so what's that going to look like? And there's so much more that we can give. There's so much more that we can
Yeah.
give. Yeah.
I'm with you. I 100% agree. I think, you know, to the people who are in your generation, I'm Gen X, I think we're the last generation that really feels like we want to finish in a 30-year, 35-year company.
Yeah.
And people behind us, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they're not there. This
No.
isn't what they want. They want for themselves, they want that peace of mind. And I get it, and I hope that we and you can help people get through that and really understand these challenges and really figure out what it is that they're looking for when they get to this stage of their life,
Yeah.
to wind down and try to enjoy the golden years, as we call them, their life.
Yes. Yeah. And for some to wind down, of course, but for others to wind up, for others to say, wow, now I
Winding
have,
up.
yeah, right.
I love it.
It's
Yeah.
it's just that mindset. It's just saying there is more for me, this whole
Yeah.
pro-aging, um, this revolution that we're in instead of anti-aging and fighting it. It's like embracing it and saying, we've got a lot more. We bring that wisdom with us. We
Absolutely.
bring so much. I don't know if you are acquainted with that book by Albert Brooks, Strength to Strength, but he speaks about, that we strive and we have this fluid intelligence, but then we move into this second curve of crystallized intelligence and all the wisdom that we can bring. And so instead of just trying to keep getting up that corporate ladder, we're able to really share with others and mentor and contribute in a whole different way. And so
Yep.
I want that for everyone throughout their life. I want there to have that runway to elderhood. So we put these good patterns and habits into place that serve us well into our 80s and 90s and beyond. Having
Absolutely.
so yeah.
Yeah. Wendy, thanks again for coming on and sharing your story with me on the QAC Team podcast. It's been a blast.
Oh, I
Um,
appreciate it. It was great.
yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much for the information, the insight, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon.
I look forward to it. And thanks to everybody for listening. And I look forward to staying in touch too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye.